This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so welcome to Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia. I'm Laura Narasic. I'm the head librarian in the Information Technology Department here at Mercer County Library System. Joining us from the staff this evening is Mary Astorita from our Hickory Corner branch, who's moderating the program. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a few reminders. One, we do ask that you leave your microphone and cameras off during the presentation so as to reduce distractions to other attendees. Questions that may arise during the presentation. If it's a technical question, I can pretty much help you out, so you can put that in the chat. You can also direct chat questions to the general audience, or Nicolette will be moderating the questions. The chat button is up on the upper right hand side. You can see there's a icon that looks like people and then the chat bubble. So you can go ahead and chat there. So if you'd like to ask any questions during the presentation, you could do so. Questions will be fielded as is appropriate during the presentation. So there may be some pauses while the presenters catch up with the questions. Others may be held towards later in the presentation. But just be aware, if you do chat, we will get your question. At the top of your screen, you also see a view control. It should be defaulted to say view everyone. If you'd like to focus on the presenter, you can go ahead and choose to see view active cameras or who's talking. Both Mary and I will be turning our cameras off once the presentation starts, so you won't be distracted by us. So again, you could do either view who's talking or view active cameras, and you'll see the presenters. Just a reminder that this program is being recorded. That's per an agreement we have with the presenters in Mercer County Library System. We do ask that if you would like to view the recording later, you could visit our YouTube channel where we will post it. Usually it takes about 24 hours or so for the processing to stop, and we can post it to the YouTube channel. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mary.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Mary Astorita from the Hickory Corner branch of the Mercer County Library System, and I'd like to welcome you to Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia. And I would like to introduce our two presenters, Nicolette Vasco and Fernando Ravel. Nicolette Vasco is Program Coordinator at Alzheimer's Association, serving the Greater New Jersey region. Ms. Vasco oversees delivery of all programs and services offered by the Alzheimer's Association to constituents in the Greater New Jersey region. As program coordinator, she engages, trains, and manages volunteers to increase the reach of community engagement. As Ms. Vasco's family has been personally impacted by Alzheimer's disease, she provides compassion in the advocacy, support, and resources to those she serves. Fernando Ravel is a doctor of pharmacy. He is a board-certified geriatric pharmacist and certified consultant pharmacist. He is especially interested in the health and wellness of the elderly. He enjoys reading and traveling. Welcome, Ms. Vasco and Dr. Ravel.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for having us. We are so happy to partner with the Mercer County Library System again. Even though we can't be in person, we're happy to assemble in this way and bring educational programs to everyone and help. We do have a helpline and educational programs, support groups, and we'll talk a little bit later about resources like that, but just know that we are here to help you, and we are happy to help in any way, answer any questions we can, and support you, your community, your family as best we can. So I will turn it over to our doctor of pharmacy, who we are so lucky to have as a community educator here with us today to help explain and understand the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia.
Thank you, Nicolette. Thank you, Mary and Laura. So basically, welcome to Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia. This education program is presented by the Alzheimer's Association. So my name is Fernando Ravel. I am a a community educator, as Nicolette mentioned, with the Alzheimer's Association, the Greater New Jersey chapter. And, I am a board certified geriatric pharmacist, and this is something that's, part of my niche that I like. I'm very interested, and I love helping out elderly population and all the conditions that affect the elderly population. So this is something that I'm very passionate about, and something that I want to spread the word and educate people. So basically, this program is designed for those interested in learning more about Alzheimer's and other dementias. We're going to feature a lot of information here from dementia experts and perspectives from individuals living with dementia and care partners. So basically, care partner is a term that many prefer over caregiver. So, the individual with Alzheimer's is in the early stage. They usually have somebody that helps them with a little bit of assistance that they need with the daily tasks, but still benefits from support of family and friends. So before we begin, I just wanted to let you guys know. So if you're having trouble hearing me, or if any moment you have a question, please put it into the chat box, and we'll get to it as soon as we can. And at any moment you have a problem hearing me, please just let me know that you're having trouble hearing me, or if you have trouble listening to any of the videos, please feel free to let us know right away. So now let's take a look at things that we're going to discuss today. Today's learning objective, so we're going to compare Alzheimer's and dementia. Basically, we're going to take a top level look at Alzheimer's and dementia to give you a broad understanding. We're going to look at how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain. We'll list some risk factors, identify the different stages of the disease. We're going to recognize current FDA-approved treatments that can address some of the symptoms of the diseases. And we're also going to talk about how scientists are working on advanced research. At the end, we're going to talk about all the resources that are available through the Alzheimer's Association. First module we're going to talk about is the impact of the Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is a global crisis, and you are likely to hear more and more about it in your personal lives and on the news. So let's start off by seeing what you know about the impact of Alzheimer's in the United States. So from few slides here and there, we're going to be testing your knowledge a little bit to kind of give you an idea about the disease. So what do you think? How many Americans are currently living with Alzheimer's? I'll give you guys a few seconds to kind of think about the answer. If anybody wants to put it into the chat box, you're more than welcome to go ahead. Basically, the correct answer is going to be 5.8 million. So there's 5.8 million Americans that are living with Alzheimer's at this moment. And by 2050, this number is projected to rise nearly to 14 million. And if you look at it worldwide, currently there is estimated of 50 million people who are living with some kind of dementia. Let's look at one more question here. How many unpaid Alzheimer's caregivers are there in the United States? Again, I'll give you a few seconds to kind of think this over. Remember, these are unpaid caregivers. So this is your family members, your friends who takes care of anybody with the Alzheimer's. So there's currently more than 16 million Americans who provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Alzheimer's impacts caregivers both at home and at work. More than 80% of care provided at home is delivered by family members, friends, or other unpaid caregivers. Over half of employed caregivers report having to go in late, take time, or quit altogether due to the caregiver demands. This caregivers provided approximately 18.4 billion hours of care last year, which values at more than $232 billion. As you can see, this disease takes a personal impact on the individual facing it, as well as a financial one. So let's learn a few more stats about the impact of the Alzheimer's. So what do you guys think of those statistics? Anything surprising at all? If you want to learn more, please go to alz.org/facts, and you can definitely get more information about the Alzheimer's. So what happens is a lot of times you hear the terms Alzheimer's and dementia used interchangeably. But they're related, but they're a little bit different. So in the next section, we're going to discuss both Alzheimer's and dementia and how they're related. But before we begin, let's take another moment to answer one more question. Let's test your knowledge. So do you think Alzheimer's is a normal part of the aging process? I'll give you a few seconds. So this is false. Alzheimer's disease is more than memory loss. It's a progressive and fatal disease that kills nerve cells and tissues in the brain, affecting an individual's ability to remember, think, plan, and ultimately function. Let's try one more question to test your knowledge. People younger than 65 can get Alzheimer's. True or false? True. Approximately 200,000 Americans under the age of 65 are living with younger onset Alzheimer's or early onset Alzheimer's. In some cases, people develop the disease in their 40s and 50s. So now we're going to watch a video of one of our experts, Dr. Heather Snyder, and she's going to be explaining how Alzheimer's and dementia are related.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow and the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
Looks like there's a little lag with the video there. So we're going to do a little recap here with the Alzheimer's and the dementia. So it's a general term for a collection of symptoms that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. It is a progressive brain disease. So is there any questions at this point?
We don't have any in the chat, but feel free if anyone thinks of anything, wants to add anything, has any questions. We're happy to pause and answer any question.
So one thing I would mention here, and this is something that we mention to our patients as well, as a geriatric pharmacist, is you want to make sure that you try to get as early diagnosis as possible. Because when you go for an early diagnosis, some of the benefits, one of them is you get an accurate diagnosis. So, early diagnosis allows you to get additional medical opinions or advice of specialists. You are able to get better medical care. You have more time for decision making, and you are better able to understand changes. Because when people are experiencing memory loss, they're often aware that something is not right. And knowing the diagnosis can help them understand the symptoms as they felt or observed. So moving on to the next part, we're going to look inside the brain, basically. So as discussed, Alzheimer's is a brain disease. The brain is our most complex organ. It is also our most powerful, despite weighing only about 3 pounds. We're going to hear from one of our experts about how Alzheimer's affects the brain.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alice Alzheimer's described specific changes in the brain, what we call the formation of plaques and tangles. Now, Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and is thought to impact memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. The cerebrum fills up most of your skull. It is part of the brain most involved in remembering, problem solving, thinking, and even feelings. There are about 100 billion nerve cells or neurons throughout the brain that transmit messages in order for us to create memories, feelings, and thoughts. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the brain tissue loss, or what we call shrinkage, and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, behavioral issues, and even at the end stages, problems with swallowing.
So a quick recap from the video. So more than 100 years ago, Dr. Alzheimer described the specific changes in the brain, the formation of plaques and tangles. Alzheimer's causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the shrinkage in the brain, and the brain changes as a result, and the changes result in changes in memory, thinking, and behavior. Now we're going to look at some of the risk factors. So everyone with the brain basically is at a risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. There are a few known factors that increase a person's risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Let's see if you know which one is most common. We're going to do a little test your knowledge question again. What is the greatest known risk factor for the Alzheimer's disease? Do you think it's genetics? Is it family history? Or is it age? Give you a few seconds to think about it. So age is definitely the most common or the greatest known risk factor that is available. Remember, they're all risk factors. Genetics and family history is also a known risk factor, but age is the greatest known risk factor. Does anybody have any questions at this point? So we're gonna move forward and we're gonna hear from our expert, Dr. Snyder, again.
Alzheimer's disease is marked by specific brain changes that result in the clinical changes in individual experiences. That is, changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. And ultimately, Alzheimer's is fatal. The exact cause for these changes is unknown, but there are some hints as to what may contribute to an individual's risk. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's. And when we look at populations of people, we see an increased risk over the age of 65. However, Alzheimer's is not normal aging. Family history is also a known risk factor. Research has shown that those who have a parent or a sibling with Alzheimer's are more likely to develop the disease, and that risk increases if more than one family member has Alzheimer's. When we talk about the genes involved in Alzheimer's, there are two categories that could potentially be involved: risk genes and deterministic genes. Risk genes increases an individual's risk for developing the disease, but does not guarantee that they will develop Alzheimer's. Deterministic genes, which are rare for Alzheimer's, guarantee that the person will develop the disease.
So just to recap a little bit from what Dr. Snyder talked about, so Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. Age is the greatest known factor though. Are there any questions at this point again? So if there's no questions, we're going to take a look at some populations who are at higher risk for developing the disease. So in addition to the main risk factors for the general population, Hispanics, African Americans, and women are at higher risk for Alzheimer's. Research shows that older Hispanics are about 1.5 times as likely as older whites to develop Alzheimer's and other dementias, while older African Americans are about twice as likely to develop the disease as older whites. The reason for these differences is not well understood, but researchers believe that higher rates of vascular disease in these groups may also put them at greater risk for developing Alzheimer's. Women are more likely than men to develop the disease. An estimated 3.4 million American women are living with the disease today. We know that women live longer than men, making them more likely to develop Alzheimer's. However, longevity and lower death rates can only partially explain the difference. Researchers are exploring how genetic difference between men and women may impact the disease risk. So to summarize, Alzheimer's disease involves the failure of nerve cells, the exact cause of which is still uncertain. However, research has identified risk factors that increase the likelihood of developing Alzheimer's. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's, and individuals' risk for developing the disease increases at age 65. Family history is a known risk factor. Having a parent or sibling with the disease increases an individual's risk. Two types of genes are associated with Alzheimer's: risk genes and deterministic genes. Hispanics, African Americans, and women are at an increased risk for developing Alzheimer's. So, if something to think about here is, let's say if you have a question that how do you know if you have the gene? So there are genetic tests that are available to see if someone carries a risk or deterministic genes. However, health professionals do not currently recommend routine genetic testing for Alzheimer's disease. If you're thinking, should you get tested or not? Because it's a personal decision. I would say you speak to your primary care doctor or your personal physician to see, if it's appropriate for you to get tested at this moment or not. It's if you have a family history of Alzheimer's, maybe you should talk to your physician and see if you can get tested. Maybe that's a good idea. Because genetics is strictly biological. That is what genes you do or do not carry. Family history takes into the account the environmental, socioeconomic, and lifestyle factors that we know might affect the risk. So next, let's look at different stages of the Alzheimer's disease. So no two individuals experience the symptoms and progression of Alzheimer's disease in the same way. We're going to hear from one of our other experts, Dr. James Hendricks, on why this is the case, as well as from some individuals describing what it's like to live in the early stage of the Alzheimer's disease.
One of the things that impacts our brain is all the other things that can happen to us as we age. And we know that Alzheimer's, the most common risk factor for getting Alzheimer's disease is age. But we also have lots of other things that go wrong with us as we age. And so how those other health factors impact our brain can also impact how Alzheimer's presents in other people.
It's a different kind of forgetting. It really, really is. It's not just forgetting where I put my car keys. It's much deeper than that. And for example, I cannot read a book. I used to be a voracious reader because by the time I turn a page, I have forgotten what I had read. And if you're reading a novel, you have to know what transpired before in order for you to continue to read on. And so I can't read a novel. So I've even stopped trying.
Math, I can't do a simple tip anymore. I sit there, I stare at it. It's crazy what numbers I can't deal with anymore. And in some ways, that's the disease to me. The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
I'm like an overachiever. And when you're unable to deliver or you're not performing at the same pace that you once did before, that's frustrating. It's frustrating to not know where you place things. It's frustrating to not be able to explain to someone the problems that you're having. You can't articulate it in a way. It's frustrating to read something and you forgot what you read. It's frustrating to continuously have to change your password and you just changed it last week and you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again.
I think the thing that surprises me the most about my dementia is that it is progressive, and I'm finding that I'm forgetting more. And they do memory tests for me all the time at the doctor, and so that becomes a little disconcerting at times to see my cognitive impairment continue to decline. But again, I really have hope. I don't live really in the future. I can't live in the future. I can't worry about what the future is going to bring. I have to live for today.
So, as we listen to these individuals, one thing to keep in mind is that these individuals are the ones living in the early stage of the disease. Symptoms do worsen over time for everyone. However, people go through the different stages of Alzheimer's at different rates and as their abilities change. On average, a person with Alzheimer's lives 4 to 8 years after diagnosis, but can live as long as 20 years, depending on other factors. And now we're going to look next at one of our other experts, Dr. Snyder, and she's going to go over the general stages of the Alzheimer's disease that we see.
Alzheimer's affects everyone differently. As a result, it's difficult to place a person in a specific stage of the disease. However, there are 3 general stages that are commonly referred to as early, middle, and late stage Alzheimer's. In a medical context, you may hear these stages referred to as mild, moderate, and severe. In the early stage of Alzheimer's, an individual may be able to function independently. However, they may start noticing frequent memory issues. Friends and family may also begin to notice difficulties in the person, and a healthcare provider may be able to detect problems in memory or concentration by conducting a detailed medical interview. Middle stage Alzheimer's is typically the longest stage and can last for many years. Damage to the brain cells can make it difficult to express thoughts and perform routine tasks, and this can lead to increased feelings of frustration and anger. In the final stage of the disease, an individual loses the ability to hold a conversation, control their movements, or respond to the environment around them. Cognitive skills, that is, their memory, thinking, and reasoning skills, continue to decline, and this can lead to personality changes and need for round-the-clock care.
So as mentioned, it's important to remember that the stages of Alzheimer's are general. And because each person living with the Alzheimer's, with the disease has a unique experience. And we can't always neatly place an individual into one specific stage. In fact, some people may exhibit symptoms that overlap stages. However, the stages do allow you to gain a general understanding of the progression of the disease. As Alzheimer's progresses, the individual's behaviors will change, as does the role of the caregiver. The stages can help caregivers prepare for what to expect and understand how to best respond. So let's recap different stages of Alzheimer's. So the 3 stages of Alzheimer's disease is early, middle, and late. These are sometimes referred to as mild, moderate, and severe. No 2 individuals experience the symptoms and progression of Alzheimer's disease in the same way. While symptoms worsen over time, people progress through different stages at different rates as their abilities change. Next, we're going to talk about FDA-approved treatments for the symptoms of Alzheimer's. So let's start out with this module again with something that you may already know about treatments. Let's see what you know about that. So there are several drugs that are available to slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Do you think it's true or false? Again, I'll give you guys a few seconds. There are several drugs available to slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Do you think it's true? Or do you think it's false? This is false. There are currently no treatment to prevent, treat, or slow down the Alzheimer's disease. However, there are several drugs that are available to address some symptoms. Let's hear from our expert, Dr. Hendricks, about these medications.
There are currently several drugs that are FDA approved to treat the cognitive symptoms associated with Alzheimer's disease. They treat the symptoms, but they don't treat the underlying cause. So eventually people will progress, but they do treat some of the symptoms and help people for a time. So the first class of drugs are cholinesterase inhibitors. These drugs work to prevent the breakdown of acetylcholine, which is a chemical messenger found in the brain that's associated with learning and memory. There are 3 FDA-approved drugs that are in this class of drugs. There's Aricept, there's Exelon, and there's Razidine. There's another class of drugs that modulates glutamate, which is another chemical messenger in the brain that's associated with learning and memory. And this drug is called Namenda. And then there's a final class, which is actually a combination of cholinesterase inhibitors and glutamate modulator, and this is called Namzaric.
So as Dr. Hendricks said, these treatments can help relieve symptoms in people for a time. Because everyone experiences Alzheimer's differently, these treatments work in varying degrees and are not effective for everyone. An accurate diagnosis is important to ensure that the proper treatment is prescribed. Drug misuse may lead to negative side effects. Again, this is something that I'm very passionate about. So some of the possible question you may have is why is your loved one on one or more than one or two, more than 2 medications or 2 different drugs for the Alzheimer's. So I can't really tell you why the doctor is treating for based without looking at the medical plan. But if you have concerns or questions, you should definitely ask, bring that up with your doctor, or you can speak to your pharmacist, whoever you deal with, to see why is it necessary for you to be on more than 2 or more drugs for Alzheimer's. It is very common. I see that a lot. It's just because, as we talked already, that everybody progresses different. Everybody's in different stages. So sometimes it is required to treat with multiple drugs. Remember, there is no medication that reverses the effect of Alzheimer's right now. You're just using all these medications to help treat the symptoms with it. So let's review what we just discussed. There's 3 types of drugs that are approved to help manage the symptoms associated with Alzheimer's. First one was cholinesterase inhibitors, which is Aricept, which the generic name goes as donepezil. There's Exelon, which is the generic name is rivastigmine. And there's Razidine, which is galantamine. So, and one of this medication, the Exelon, also comes as patches, so which works out for a lot of people. If they don't like taking pills, they can put a patch. It's a 24-hour patch that you can put on that you just change every day. There's glutamate modulars, which is Namenda. There's only one medication in that group at this point. The generic name it's known by is Memantine. Combination of cholinesterase inhibitors and glutamate modulars. This is something new. It's Namzaric, which is a combination of donepezil and Memantine. And this is something that's fairly new. These treatments only address some symptoms of the Alzheimer's in some people. They do not treat the underlying cause of the disease. We're going to look at the advancing Alzheimer's research. So in the last decade, researchers have made enormous strides in understanding how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain. Many recent insights point towards promising new strategies for treatment, prevention, and diagnosis.
It's nice to see the association spearheading in many ways the emphasis on getting the money at the federal level and at the private sector to get the research done so that someday there will be an effective treatment, hopefully cure, hopefully prevention.
This is an incredibly exciting time in Alzheimer's and dementia research. The advancements that we've made in the last decade to understand the disease as a continuum, meaning that the biological changes are starting a decade or more before someone is experiencing the changes in the memory and thinking. This sets the stage for possible prevention. The idea that when we have the tools to identify those individuals at the earliest time point, and when we have the interventions to target individuals at that earliest time point, we can intervene to stop or slow the progression of the disease before an individual loses their memories.
I'm excited about what we're learning these days regarding lifestyle. One of those things that we've seen in the past are things like exercise and nutrition have now started to gain more momentum to indicate to us that it can change your ability to slow cognitive decline. That is really the first stages of Alzheimer's disease. This may include things like social engagement, mental cognitive training. It can be things such as exercise. It can be nutrition. All those things are now starting to point that they will lower your risk for Alzheimer's disease.
A lot of hope does come from the Alzheimer's Association, all the research that is being done. Even though there is not a cure today for the disease, I know in my heart there is going to be a cure one day. And I know we're getting closer for that cure. Because even if you fail in a research study, you learn from that failure in the research study. That failure always brings progression.
So as we just heard, there's a lot of hope for where we're headed with Alzheimer's research. One of the key ways to keep research moving in the right direction is through clinical studies. Scientists are looking for new ways to treat Alzheimer's, and there are many drugs currently in the research pipeline, and this is very exciting. Recruiting and retaining trial participants is now the greatest obstacle, other than funding, to developing the next generation of Alzheimer's treatments. So we're going to look and we're going to hear from Dr. Fargo and Dr. Hendricks about the importance of these clinical studies for the future of the Alzheimer's treatment.
More important than ever for people to participate in clinical studies. The fact is, right now, we don't have an effective treatment to stop Alzheimer's disease. And if we don't have people participating in clinical trials, we never will. And so participating in a clinical study is one way that everyone can get involved in a very direct way in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. And for people who currently have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, there are some additional benefits. You get access to very close medical care. You also may be among the first people to have access to the treatments that will eventually prove to work.
Sometimes you hear the phrase, it's a failed trial. That means that it didn't hit the endpoint, it didn't achieve an FDA-approved drug. But I would say as a scientist, the only failed trial is one that doesn't give you valuable information. And if the trial is well designed, if it is a good scientific experiment, you get extremely valuable data so that you can plan the next trial and do the next study even better than the last one. And it gets you that much closer to that FDA-approved drug, to that effective treatment, and maybe someday even a cure.
So as we heard from Dr. Fargo, everyone can help to advance Alzheimer's research. It's especially critical that people of diverse backgrounds participate in clinical research because they are at an increased risk of developing the disease. As we learned before, that Hispanics, African Americans, and women are at a higher risk of getting the disease. So they definitely should participate in the clinical research because it's important that researchers are able to study large populations of these individuals to better understand the disease and their elevated vulnerability. Next, we're going to take a look at an association service that can help people find studies. It's called the Trial Match. Let's learn a little bit about that now.
Currently, more than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. By participating in clinical research, you can move us toward methods of treatment and prevention for all those affected by this devastating disease. Alzheimer's Association Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for those with dementia, caregivers, and healthy volunteers. To start, simply create a confidential user profile and receive a list of studies that may be a match for you. Don't just hope for a cure, help us find one.
So, if anybody has any questions, please, type them in the chat box about clinical studies or trial match. Some possible things that I can go over right now is, what's the difference between a clinical study and a clinical trial? So this, people use these terms often interchangeably, but there is a little bit of a difference between them. Clinical trials test actually like new interventions or drugs to prevent, detect, or treat disease. A clinical study is any type of clinical research involving people, regardless of whether it is testing a specific intervention. Clinical studies can also look at other aspects of care, such as improving quality of life. So that's the difference between the clinical study and the clinical trial. If you're worried that you don't want to sign up because you don't want your information being shared, so again, when you do trial match, they do not share your information unless you ask them to share, unless you choose to connect your information with all the trials. Otherwise, all the other information remains confidential. One of the things they mentioned during the the intro with Dr. Maria was healthy volunteers. So what is who is a healthy volunteer? So basically healthy people who do not have dementia. So maybe you have Alzheimer's and you're healthy, but they're looking for healthy volunteers who do not actually have any kind of dementia, which helps them compare with their clinical trials and their clinical studies. If you're wondering if it's risky to participate in a clinical study, clinical trials are experiments, and as a result, always involve some level of risk. However, the ethical and legal codes that govern the medical practice also apply to clinical trials. So participants should discuss and understand any side effects with their doctor, and if necessary, you can withdraw at any time.
And I can speak a little to the trial match. So I personally enrolled in the program. I did it about 2 or 3 years ago, and I went online. It asked me about 5 or 6 questions, took me a matter of minutes. My age, my race, my gender, did I have Alzheimer's or dementia at this time? And then it populated a list for me. For me, it was 3 trials that I qualified for. And it gave me their contact information, so I was able to move forward if I wanted to contact them or not. With the trial match, not all of them are drug trials. Some are preventative, some are about the cure. It really varies all over the map. There's hundreds going on currently. And it really narrowed it down if I wanted to move forward and get involved. It didn't obligate me to anything, which was nice. It was my decision at that point. It also didn't sign me up for anything. Usually when you enroll in something or you try and find information about something, now you're on someone's mailing list and they emailed you for the rest of your life. This was something I have never had them reach out to me or call me or solicit me. It was really up to me to move forward or not. And as was said, so important we all get involved, because if women never get involved, or African Americans, or people that are Hispanic, or all different, we're all a little bit different. If a certain population of people are not represented in the research, then how do we know that we're helping everyone? So important, absolutely.
All right, moving forward. So do a little recap in the Alzheimer's research. So scientists have increased their understanding of the Alzheimer's significantly over the past decade. People with the disease, caregivers, and healthy individuals without dementia are needed to participate in clinical studies in order to find methods of prevention, treatment, and ultimately a cure. Clinical studies may provide participants with cutting-edge treatment and additional medical care. Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for people interested in participating in the Alzheimer's research. Alzheimer's is difficult. However, no one has to face the disease alone. Let's learn a little more about the Alzheimer's Association and how we can help individuals and families across the country. Alzheimer's Association is in communities across the country, providing direct service to individuals and families facing the disease. Our mission is to eliminate Alzheimer's disease through the advancement of research, to provide and enhance care and support for all affected, and to reduce the risk of dementia through the promotion of brain health. Our vision is a world without Alzheimer's disease. The association is available wherever and whenever you need reliable information and support. 3 of our key resources that we can connect it to the information and support include our 24/7 helpline, which is 1-800-272-3900. You can call anytime, day or night, to receive any information and support that you need regarding the Alzheimer's disease. It does provide access to highly trained and knowledgeable staff who can help with education, decision-making support, crisis assistance, and resource identification. There are master's level clinicians available around the clock, provide in-depth care consultations, a free of charge care navigation service offered to families at any stage of the disease, available in more than 200 languages.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center when I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. You know, there's been a couple, 2 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
Next resource is our website, alz.org. Often it's the first stop for individuals following a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia. It includes sections specifically for people living with the disease or caregivers. So let's hear from Teresa, who is living with Alzheimer's, and about what questions she had and the information she found on our website, alz.org.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, then I was trying to find out more about what was Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, how long has this been around, how many people are affected by this, where can I go for resources, where can I go for help, what do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found a support line that's 24 hours a day. And there I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening in the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
And last but not least is our community resource finder, which is a wealth of community-based resources available in your area, including long-term care and community-based services, local association offices, and their offerings of programs and support services. You can visit alz.org/CRF, and you can get all the community resources there. Tom, who's also living with Alzheimer's, shares his experience seeking help from the association to find local resources in his area. Let's listen to Tom.
Since I've been diagnosed with dementia, the one place that I know I can go to for assistance and help and support is to the Alzheimer's Association. There are people there that I know by name that I can contact if I'm having a difficult time or if I'm struggling to find some resource, that they will provide that to me.
So these are our resources. If somebody has any questions, please put them into the chat box. We're going to go through all the questions. So, if you have a question how to find your local chapter, again, go to alz.org/crf, or you could also call the 24/7 helpline 1-800-272-3900, and they can help you with this. Now, do you have to pay for any of these resources? No, you do not. The association offers all these educational programs, support groups, and everything is free of charge. One of the ways you can join the fight is volunteer. There are a lot of different ways you could get involved, and one of them is volunteer. I am a volunteer community educator with them. It depends, you could spare a few hours a week, or you could do a little bit more time commitment. It's up to you. If you would like to volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association, please go to alz.org/volunteer, and they have a lot of information there on how you can volunteer in different positions available in your area. You can become an Alzheimer's Association advocate and speak out on behalf of the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease. You can go to alzimpact.org. Trial match, we spoke about in detail before, but everyone basically can help advance Alzheimer's research by participating in clinical trials. Get started with the Alzheimer's Association trial match. You can go to alz.org/trial match. Again, this is a free, easy to use, and it's confidential. And this is one of my favorite activities with the Alzheimer's Association is the walk to end the Alzheimer's. It's held annually in more than 600 communities. So basically it's the world's largest fundraiser to fight the disease. You can register today. You can go to alz.org/walk, and you can definitely find a walk that's happening in your area. So at this point, we will go through the chat box and I will address the questions.
I can read them to you. So the first one, what specifically are the reasons age is such a great risk factor?
So age is a risk factor because what happens is over time, your body deteriorates. And there is a lot of age-related changes, including the shrinkage that they talk about, the atrophy in parts of the brain. There's inflammation, there's vascular damage that takes place. What happens also as you get older is if people, if somebody's had a stroke, that affects the vascular, vascular part of your brain. Which can cause vascular dementia or Alzheimer's at that point. There's also a lot of arteriosclerosis, which is basically when you have hardening of the arteries in the brain, which again, unfortunately, age is a great risk factor with that. And as you age, all the damage it causes to your body throughout the years, your environment and everything affects that. And that's one of the reasons why age is such a great risk factor.
We have also a question about what pathways can affect possible underlying genetic predispositions for Alzheimer's disease.
So it's driven by the epigenetic changes on how certain genes are turned on and off in the brain, and it's what happens is it turns off the pathways where the DNA, it causes the mutation, which doesn't mark the protein like it's supposed to And that's basically what happens, and that's why we have the medications like cholinesterase inhibitors and the modulators to help with that, to help with the symptoms.
We have someone that shared two of their aunts who were both smokers. They lived into their 90s but suffered from Alzheimer's disease. Would this mean they were at the risk of Alzheimer's? The person wants to know about their risk for Alzheimer's because it does run in their family. So with that one, I would say that so age is the #1 risk factor. Yes, heredity, genetics, family history is also a component. It does increase someone's risk, but it is not the most significant. And it's also, we focus on, so we teach a healthy living class that PR does for us as well, and he does such a great job. And I definitely recommend anyone attend a healthy living program, because we talk a lot about those things that we can control. Unfortunately, a lot of us would like to control, who our family members are, what genes we got, that we're always going to be young. And unfortunately, we can't control those things, but we can control, that smoking isn't good for us, so not to smoke, or that we're going to eat healthy, we're going to exercise, having good heart health. We're going to get that social stimulation, talk to others, and be cognitively engaged, learn new things. So protect ourselves, so wear our seatbelts in our cars, and protect our heads when we ride bicycles. So there's a lot of controllables that we can really try and manage, and those were things that will definitely reduce our risk. So even if it does run in our family or we're aging, we can still age well, and we can still reduce those risks by those controllables. Another question is, medical evaluation is minimally useful. Neurological assessment, destiny, meds are often given. Some of it is just comments. So definitely lots of good interactions in the chat, and if there's anything else that we can help with in the future, please let us know. Our helpline, our website is on the screen. So we're happy to help, and if there's any resources or anything you think of after the program, we're happy to answer them and send anything out to you. And we appreciate you so much for spending the evening with us, and thank you, PR, for always doing such a good job, and thank you, Mary, for still partnering with us even during the pandemic in this virtual time.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to the program. And like Nicolette said, if you guys have any questions, any other concerns, or if you would like to participate in any of the other programs that we offer, please feel free to reach out to her.
Thank you to our presenters, Nicolette Vasco and Dr. Ravel, for a very informative session. Thank you as well to our viewers and your questions, comments, and overall interest. Be sure to take a look at the many programs offered by Mercer County Library System. We will continue to offer remote programs such as this one. With the good weather, we have also begun offering outdoor programs at the branches. So go to mcl.org and click on events. I'm sure you'll find something that will interest you. So we hope to see you soon. Thank you and good night.